everybody, and welcome to Thriving Six, how to give your child the edge in middle school in the era of COVID-19. My name is Ashley Mars-Jones, and I am co-presenting with the fantastic Gordon Grissom, principal at Sacagawea Middle School. Gordon, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm the fantastic Gordon Grissom, evidently. Thank you for that introduction, Ashley. You were very kind. I am Gordon Grissom, the principal at Sacagawea, and want to welcome everybody to this presentation. It's a little bit unique, and we may fumble our way through it a little bit, so I'm asking for grace and forgiveness ahead of time. But so excited to have everybody that is here joining us today, and hopefully it'll be beneficial for you.
Absolutely. So with that said, the reason we are doing this live is because we know that you as parents probably have some questions, maybe some concerns about how the start of the school year is going to look for sixth graders in particular. So we are actually leaving the last 25 minutes for a Q&A. Any burning questions that you have, any answers that you need from likely Gordon, I may be able to answer a few of them as well. But go ahead and send them via chat in the link, and then Gordon and I will answer those in the last 25 minutes. So we're not going to have them live. This presentation is being recorded, so just know that. And then it will also be shared on the Sacagawea website, and then also probably on the Thrive website too. So if you know of any parents that missed this presentation, feel free to mention that it will be shared as well. So with that said, let's get started. I am obviously a Thrive Parent Liaison at Sacagawea Middle School. It is a privilege and an honor to be in the role of Parent Liaison. I have actually been in this role for almost 20 years, and it is a role that I cherish. It's a role that I'm passionate about, and it has been a wonderful, wonderful experience. I am also, like many of you guys, a working parent. We have two kids, a third grader and then an eighth grader. We live in Church Hill and have our kids in Church Hill and then also in Manhattan. Yeah, let's see. So let's talk really quick about Thrive. I know many of you guys know what Thrive is. Thrive is a phenomenal local nonprofit that has been in the Gallatin Valley for over 30 years. Many of you guys know that the CAP mentoring program, that's probably one of our most popular programs. It provides 600 local school kids with community mentors. We also have our Parent Liaison program, which is obviously near and dear to my heart. Parent Liaison just provides support and resources to kids and families, actually parents in Bozeman School District. Anyway, it's a great program. It's free of charge, and if you haven't tapped into it, you certainly should. We also have our Parent Place, which provides parenting education. We do Circle of Security, we do Love and Logic. This fall in November, Betsy, the other parent liaison, and I from Chief Joseph, we will be teaching a really phenomenal how to parent your adolescent and teen with Love and Logic parenting class. So it's so much more than just Love and Logic. It is just really how to connect with your kids during this time where they're intentionally kind of trying to push back and disconnect a little bit. So how to keep that relationship strong. And you can register for that at allthrive.org. We also have our partnership program, which supports all of our teen parents. We also have Girls for a Change, which is a phenomenal summit that is produced by girls for girls statewide conference at MSU. We have Girls on the Run, and then we also have Let Me Run. So they're all our programs are about healthy families and about really empowering families. So with that, let's go ahead and jump right in. And thank you to all of our Parent Liaison sponsors. As a nonprofit, it's really these sponsors that make our programs run free of charge. Okay, so what can we expect this year? As you guys know I don't need to tell you, middle school is an enormous shift for children. I have an eighth grader now, and it's amazing to think how much he has changed just since sixth grade. He definitely looks like an adult now. He is a big kid, and he is growing and changing at a rapid pace. So middle school is the greatest developmental shift for our kids, aside from age 0 to 2. And you guys remember bringing that baby home, how much they changed in the first 2 years. And middle school is second to that, but it is rapid change with kids' brains, with their bodies, with their hormones, intellectually, It is just a phenomenally rich and exciting time. With that, it also brings, right, it's two sides of the very same coin, tremendous challenge, right? It's a hard time to parent. One minute you could be really enjoying your middle schooler, the next minute they may be in tears because things aren't going well with football. Yeah, so this time there's a great focus on peers. I'm sure I don't need to tell you that. Uh, Anything that peers are doing, from what they're wearing to how they're behaving, anything like that becomes the focus. So we become less relevant, peers become more relevant. And that is an evolutionary holdover which helps propel our children out of our homes and into the world and becoming functioning members of society. So that is what that is. It's a high time of risk taking, especially for young men. The ages 11 to 25 are some of the riskiest times in their lives because maybe a friend says, let's do it. And they're like, I want to impress my friends, so I'm going to go ahead and do that risk. So yeah, it's a challenging time. It's also a time of lack of perspective taking, which essentially means if they aren't aware of anybody else's thoughts or feelings, especially yours as a parent, um, you're right, they're not. There's so much going on in their brains and bodies that they're completely focused on themselves and their friends. Anything that may add pressure to you or make your life a little more stressful, they have no awareness whatsoever about that. So occasionally reflecting that back to them is helpful. So opportunities, this is a rich time. It's a great time for creativity. This is one of the most creative periods in a middle schooler's life. They are super open to new ideas. And they move out of that kind of elementary school concrete thinking kind of stage into kind of a more open world where they get cynicism, they might get jokes that they never did before, they might make jokes that they never did before, and it's just a fun and exciting time. Gordon, anything you want to add on middle school development?
Thank you, Ashley. You did a tremendous job of describing the developmental changes that take place at this period of early adolescence for kids. And yeah, I'm sure those of you who have had other kids go through this, you know of what we speak, and those of you who are first-time parents of young adolescents, here we go. Buckle up, it's going to be an interesting ride. But that's what makes my job so special. Middle school these kids are incredibly unique during this time. And as Ashley very eloquently described, we try to, at school, recognize all those kinds of things. And some of you maybe have expressed this, or I've certainly heard it when I've talked about being an educator, or when I was a teacher, or as a principal, and we talk about, you meet somebody and they say, what do you teach, or what grade level? And we talk about, and say middle school or something, and often it's like that, really? Wow. Why would you do that? But really we do it because it's so exciting, and these kids are so dynamic during this period of time. And it really is it's a great age. We love them. And I'm using the plural pronoun here because it's not just me, it's our staff. And we have people here at the school that are here for the right reasons. And the people that are teaching at our middle school at SAC, and I think CJ's the same way, are really here because they not only love teaching, but they love this age. And we can't say we understand them, because I don't know that anybody really does. But we understand what they're going through, and we embrace that. And so middle schools themselves are when I went to this period of time in my own personal life, I grew up in Kalispell, and I went to a 7th grade in Linderman that was all by itself. And then I went to Kalispell Junior High, and it was a junior high. And those are very different than middle schools. And what middle schools intend to do is recognize these kids with all those challenges and all those also great things about them that Ashley was talking about. But we try to design a school and the structure of the school and the system of the school in a way that recognizes those kids. And so the kids have advisory, for example, at the beginning of the day. And that's a time for them to come in and develop relationships with their teachers, and we will spend time in advisory helping and guiding them specifically through this period of time in their life, and as it relates to education, but as it relates to relationships and peer relationships and adult relationships, and helping them understand, as Ashley said, moving from those concrete to the abstract, and developing their moral thinking, and you know, they're much more developed cognitively, or they're starting in that path. And so we take time to recognize that and to acknowledge it and guide and help them understand it themselves, you know, metacognition kind of things. And then we also have at middle school teams, and each of the grade levels have interdisciplinary teams where we take the total number that we have. We'll have, with some of the students going remotely, we have about 270, 280 sixth graders at SAC this year. And we'll break those kids into 3 different teams. And the reason we do that is those kids then work directly with a group of teachers, and those teachers work directly with a group of students. And it allows us to, again, get to know those kids better. And that's another dynamic, or another function of middle schools. And another part of that is giving kids choices. And so this is the first time that the kids have electives, for example. And we want them to start to explore their interests. Who are they as individuals? What are they interested in? What would they like to pursue a little bit more? What have they maybe not been exposed to that we would like to provide that opportunity to be exposed to? So the kids get those electives and they have some choice in that. And then the instructional style and the way that our teachers create their classrooms, we recognize again who they are. They're very social, for example. And so there's much more dialogue and there's working together. Now in the time of COVID, you know, we're also being very, very cognizant of maintaining safe habits and safe behaviors in the school. But it is a time when there's more conversation, there's more dialogue, there's more collaboration within the schools, because they need that as well. And that helps them to develop that intellectual development that they're at, or the academic part of them, as well as attending to that social part. We recognize that they want to be with their friends. Like Ashley said, unfortunately, as parents, we start to descend a little bit as their friends become more important to them. That's not a bad thing. That helps them to start to develop that independence, and that's often a positive thing. But we look at ways to structuring that as well, in terms of providing time for them to socialize, be it in the lunchroom or on the courtyard between classes, or within the classroom. Again, that recognition that they want to be interacting with their friends. And if we can recognize that, utilize that, build that into a positive way, then we're going to do that with the school. So that's some of the ways that middle schools do that. Sacagawea in particular, I mean, what I'm sharing is really middle school, but it's very much in terms of who we are in Sacagawea. And I touched on this earlier, and it's unique. I mean, our teachers are unique, just like the kids are unique. And elementary teachers, God bless them, they do amazing work. And high school teachers do amazing work as well. In the elementaries, there's so much about the kid and helping them develop, and just recognize them as younger children, and helping them develop what it means to be a student in a school. And that's a big part of what they do, as well as the content and helping them to read and learn their math and those things. And the high school teachers are, you know, I mean, this is a bit of a stereotype and a generalization. They also care about kids. Please don't get me wrong, but they're also into their subject. They're into their content, and that's great, because the learning is much more involved at the high school level. And middle school is kind of in between. We love our subjects. We are passionate about the subjects that we teach, but we're also passionate about the kids. So, all right, I'll stop there.
Awesome.
I talked a while.
No, it's wonderful, Gordon. And I might tear up. you guys may or may not know Gordon, you may or may not know me, but what I want you guys to know is that Gordon and I have been teaching this class together for probably the last 15 years. And every year he tears up when we're doing this presentation. And it's because he's passionate about his role. It's because he loves your kids. And I know with all the technology that may or may not come across, but I just want you to know he's here for the right reasons and our staff is here for the right reasons. So again, if you have any burning questions, we're going to take the last half of this presentation to answer them. If you don't feel comfortable putting those on the chat, if that's a little too visible for you, send me an email or send Gordon an email. If I don't have the answer, I will track it down and I will find the answer for you. So now is a time where I want you to know that we're here and we want to get all of your questions answered. So let's go to the next slide. Many of you guys may know Brene Brown. If you don't, you should. She is a pretty phenomenal social worker, I guess is what a researcher. And she's done a lot of work with Oprah. She's done a lot with Fortune 500 companies in the United States. She's really cool and she's into kind of exploring vulnerability. She does a lot with parenting and the parenting class that Betsy and I will lead in November. I use a lot of Brene Brown's stuff because it really makes sense. So let's go ahead and read this slide and I'm going to read it out loud because it really resonates with me. So this pandemic experience is a massive experiment in collective vulnerability. We can be our worst selves when we're afraid or our very best selves, our best, bravest selves. In the context of fear and vulnerability, there is often very little in between because when we are uncertain and afraid, our default is self-protection. We don't have to be scary when we're scared. Let's choose awkward, brave, and kind, and let's choose each other. And I guess I put that on because this is going to be a messy process. This is going to be a messy process for our kids. It's going to be a messy process for us as parents. It already has been, I'm sure, for many of you trying to figure out childcare and all of that stuff. It will be a messy process for our teachers too. They are rapidly growing and changing and adapting new curriculum for online, all of these things, Canvas, all these things that they're using. And it might not be, perfect, which is okay. What we are doing here is we are developing grit, we are promoting resiliency, and it's going to be a messy time, and that's okay. So anyway, with that, let's be kind to each other and let's be kind to ourselves.
Ashley, can I jump in here too? Not to interrupt you, but this is a great quote, and I'm not as familiar with Brene Brown, but in travels this summer, my wife and I listened to one of her books on tape, and it was amazing to me. That was my first exposure to her. So I really appreciate the things that she says, and I love this idea about vulnerability. But it's also this part about fear. And last week when we met as a staff for the first time, we talked about that. And I've been able to be involved in a process of working together to solve problems through a consensus process. And some of you maybe have even been a part of that because it's a major part of our school district in terms of resolving issues and problems. But one of the parts in that consensus process is recognizing that when change appears, we go to this reptilian part of our brain or this portion of ourselves where it's protection. And that's normal. And we talk about that in that process. We did this last week with our staff, because please know that our staff are also feeling all these changes and probably many of the same things as Ashley just pointed out that you as parents are feeling, and we know our kids are feeling. There's so much going on right now, and it's so in some ways chaotic and volatile and unknown. And we feel that as a staff too. And I'm just throwing it out there. But our minds go to kind of those worst case scenarios, and part of that consensus process is just recognizing that and putting them out there. And by getting them out there, that sometimes that just helps. It kind of gets it out of our minds and in front of us, and we can say, yeah, those are real fears. But then we also, part of that process is looking at the best possible outcomes. And that's the process we went to as a staff as well. And I think that that's really important, that we recognize that in ourselves and we train our minds to acknowledge that, but then move forward. And I bring in this all up just because I want you to know our staff, yeah, we're feeling stress here and we're feeling fear as well. and we are feeling vulnerability as well. But as a staff, we're also acknowledging that and confronting it and moving forward. And we have an amazing people. So we're going to shoot. I thought doing this online. thought doing this online was going to protect me from getting emotional. As Ashley says, I do that often when we're in person. And so forgive me. But it happens when I am passionate about what I'm talking about with our kids. Also, shoot, this is even being taped. This is really bad. But also I'm talking about our staff, because we're here for your kids. And with that, I'll stop. And Ashley, please take over.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll take over. But let me just say really quick, you guys, that's who's going to be manning the helm, taking care of your kids. So it's going to be good. It's going to be good. So let's go ahead and transition. How to support your sixth grader during blended learning. It's obviously an interesting time. There's a couple of strategies that I would love to talk about. The first one would be listening. Morgan, do you mind switching to the next slide? Thank you. How often do we really listen to our kids? How often do we really listen to each other? I think it's a difficult thing. I think the more that we can be there for each other, especially right now, the better. Providing some tech-free time, I think, is really important. Putting down the cell phones, maybe going for a walk with your kid, maybe shooting some hoops together, where you're just there side by side, not face to face, because sometimes that can be a little invasive at this age. But just being there to support, and then also truly trying to hear what our kids are saying. I think also validating and empathizing, those sound really simple and this sounds very common sense, which it is, but we as human beings truly seek validation. We want to be accepted for who we are. We want to be accepted for the thoughts and beliefs that we have. And as we know, our kids are growing and changing, developing their own thoughts, and they want to know that their thoughts are valid. We might not agree with them, but they are valid. So I guess the question I would ask you is, are sixth graders' feelings and is their pain just as valid as ours as adults? And as we know, it really is. And I think treating their pain and their woes from each day with the same kid gloves that we would treat our spouses or our own can be really empowering during this time. We don't have to wallow in it, but I think if maybe your son comes home or your daughter comes home and says, I had a really hard day today, I didn't feel included, so-and-so's friends with somebody else and they don't want to hang out with me anymore. Hearing them, looking at them and just saying, gosh, that sounds like a really tough time. That little validation, tough time, I'm sad to hear that, is just enough to be able to kind of move on from that. Share control when possible. We as human beings seek control constantly in our daily lives. And Love and Logic actually teaches a lot about sharing control. And during this time where it feels like not a lot is within our control, the more that we can share control with our kids, the better. That's not the blank check for just saying, here, do whatever you want, because that's not obviously an option at this point in time. But offering choices. Do you want to do your distance learning now or in an hour? Do you want to go get in the shower now or in 15 minutes? What time do you want to go to bed? Do you want to go to bed at 8:30 or 9? Choice. Offering as many choices as we possibly can during the day is incredibly powerful. And then when it comes to something like, yeah, we got to get your distance learning done. I've given you a lot of choices. Now I'm going to go ahead and make the decision, get going, that kind of thing. And then also grit and grace. We talk a lot at Sacagawea Middle School about promoting grit, and without that little grain of sand in the oyster shell, there never will become the pearl. So recognizing that this time is difficult, this time is challenging, parenting is challenging, as you guys all know, but know that that will promote a society and a group of kids, a generation of kids that are probably more resilient than we've seen in a long time. So some cool things are going to really come out of this, just as Gordon had said. So grace for ourselves as parents. This is a wonky time. Grace for our kids when they melt down because they don't know what's going on or what's expected of them. And just kindness to everybody. Gordon, anything you want to add on this one?
No, again, Ashley, you summed that up really well. And again, it's recognizing those developmental changes that your kids are going through and giving them space when they need that space, right? But also keeping them close. It's that yin and yang, I guess, of those kids and where they're at. And sometimes they don't know that, and it's okay to be the parent, and even when they may be kind of keeping you away at arm's length, know that they still want you to be there. So I have a dog that I used to have an Akita that we'd take camping or hiking, and it would always run up ahead in the trail, 25, 30 yards or whatever, but it would always stop and turn around. Your dogs probably do the same thing. And I think that's kind of like our kids. They want to be out there up ahead and experimenting with that independence, but they're also looking back and make sure that you're there and in sight. So recognizing that and navigating that at home, and as it applies to the school, I think is really valuable. So Ashley, I appreciate you bringing that in.
Absolutely. I guess what I've found in my almost 14-year-old is he needs me just as much now, if not more so, but just in a different way, kind of figuring out where I have those little opportunities to plug in. Yeah. Okay, so what can I do as a parent? Next. Oh, you got it. Thanks, Morgan. Be there, right? And be present. Having, as I talked about, that time where I put away my iPhone and maybe my kids put away their devices and we're just there together, going to Yellowstone or, going for a mountain bike ride, whatever. Now more than ever, establishing a partnership with Sacagawea is critically important. We need you. You are an integral part in your kids' education, and partnering with teachers, partnering with staff is of utmost importance for the success of your child. Establishing, and with that really quick, partnering with the school. I encourage all sixth grade families to set up a team meeting at some point during the school year. You might give it a month or two just with kind of getting through the initial parts of the school year, but a 30-minute meeting with their child's team of teachers just to tell them who your kid is, what makes them cool, what do they struggle with. It would be a great opportunity, and I can help you set that up, as can your child's school counselor. Establish a home environment for learning. Gordon and I often talk about how kids really need a lot of sleep at this age. I think it's like 9 hours. And as we know, it is so hard with the activities they're involved in and friends and homework and stuff like that. It's really difficult to get them the sleep that they need. The more sleep they get, the better their behavior will be. And also one other piece that I do often find in meetings with teachers and parents is that kids are going to bed with their iPhones and their iPads in their rooms. And the more that you can pull those out of their rooms and have them plug them in your room at night, getting them out of their room will really promote a healthy and a restorative sleep. Gordon, anything that you want to add on that?
Yeah, I'll just say one or two things. It looks different for those of you who are bringing kids into the middle school for the first time. It does look a little bit different in terms of the role of the parent or in the school. And sometimes maybe, or many of you perhaps volunteered in the school, or you were able to walk down the halls and be in the classroom and those kinds of things. So that part looks a little bit different at the middle school. You do have opportunities to participate. We have a very healthy and thriving parent advisory council. And we'd love to have people being involved in that. We have had Project Connect, which is volunteer parents coming in and greeting students in the morning. Maybe you've seen articles at the high school where they did it a couple of years ago, and then we brought it into our school this year. So that's one more opportunity. There's smaller ways. We go on field trips, and if you want to chaperone on a field trip, that kind of a thing is available as well. But one other thing that Ashley mentioned was the team meetings. Instead of just one primary teacher that your student had in elementary, they now have a team of teachers. And again, the reason for that team and the way we structure that in middle school is for us to work closely with a group of kids and get to know those kids better. You are key to that. And so, as Ashley suggested, if you would like to meet with your team of teachers, we do that all the time. And that is so valuable for us because we get to know your kid from the experts. You guys know them better than we do. And what we gain from that can be really valuable. And it doesn't, you don't have to wait for an issue to come up or a problem or a concern. As Ashley said, maybe give us a couple of weeks to get our feet on the ground, but then feel free to reach out to me or to our counseling staff, and we'll set up a meeting with the team as well.
Absolutely. Awesome. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and shift into the Q&A portion of this presentation. And really quick, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Morgan Olson, who is a parent educator at Thrive with me, a brilliantly technologically savvy coworker of mine that is here supporting this process to make it as professional and seamless as possible. So with that, go ahead and message in your chat questions if you have them. And Morgan, do you have a few right now? Yeah.
Can you see the function on there?
No, let's see. Oh yeah, I think so. Okay, got it. Okay, excellent. Has the school talked about how to support the kids in creating new relationships? For my daughter specifically, all her besties are going to school on the opposite days from her. Just seeing how much you care is really reassuring. Thank you so much. I totally agree on that. That comes up every single year, whether we're distance learning or not. Kids are often not on the same team as their best friends from elementary school, and this is a really hard thing. Gordon, do you want to take a crack at this question?
Yeah, that is a big transition for kids coming to sixth grade. We recognize that, and it's, again, it's that fear of the unknown, I think, is a big part of it. You're going to a brand new place and new teachers, and maybe and most likely without your best friend next to you, or the kid that you went to school with, maybe in fourth and fifth and grades as well. And that is hard. We recognize that. We do spend a lot of time connecting, teachers connecting with the kids, but also kids providing opportunities for kids to connect with each other. And even though they may not be in the same classroom or even on the same team as their besties, as Ashley called them, or the parent that sent this in, they will see them. And so our kids, they do have lunches together as all sixth grade. I recognize that this year with the COVID, the blended model, we have Monday, Tuesday groups, and we have Thursday, Friday groups. And so there is that potential separation. But we do, that advisory time that I spoke to earlier is really a time to getting to know each other and build up some identity as a team and as an advisory, and getting to know those kids really well. And then again, within the classes, they are interacting an awful lot, as I mentioned before. And we try to break down those elementary cohort groups, just because we don't want kids to feel excluded. We want them to feel like you're now at Sacagawea. You are part of Sacagawea, and all of you are a part of Sacagawea. So that's very much on our mind, and again, something that we address in those advisory class periods, but also throughout the course of the day. You may not be with your best friend, but hey, there's some new opportunities to develop some friendships here.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and read the next question, but really quick, there's the last one on there I just want to address, and then I'm going to turn the other question to Gordon. Has this presentation been copied so the single parent who is at work can review this at night? Absolutely. This is going to be shared on the SMS website. This is going to be shared on the allthrive.org website. Yes, we want this to be inclusive to all parents, regardless of their situation. Okay, Gordon, I'm going to direct this one to you. Thank you to all. Great way to start the year. How can my online kid meet her team of teachers before the year starts? Is this even a possibility?
That's a great question. It's probably unlikely unless those teachers set up those opportunities themselves. But to be perfectly honest with you, many of the reasons, or for many of the families that have chosen the remote, it's because of health concerns that they have and wanting to reduce that risk of exposure. So face-to-face and group kind of meetings is unlikely, to be honest with you. And so that the staff that have also are filling those roles, some of them also have personal health concerns as well, either themselves or within their homes. And so that person to person may be through the screen, just like we're doing right now, unfortunately. It's unlikely that there will be opportunities for them to have face-to-face contact other than through the Canvas or whatever other technology that they're using.
Okay, and I just got another question, and Gordon, I'm also gonna have you answer this one if it's okay. How are you gonna keep my 6th graders safe this year, given COVID and everything else?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a fair question. We're going to do our best. We absolutely will. Speaking specifically about COVID, there's three major protocols that we are going to be following and really driving home with the kids. One is wearing a mask at all times. When they're in the building, they will have their masks on. They will have opportunities to be outside, and as long as they are moving and not in close contact with kids over an extended period of time, then they will be allowed to take their mask off, which I think is also important. But within the building, kids and staff will all have masks on whenever they are in a room with anybody else or when they're moving from room to room. So kids will always have those on. The second thing that we're really promoting is hand washing. Some of you probably were here for the tours the other day, and one of the things that I was mentioning at the tours is we expect the kids to be washing their hands at least 5 times during the course of the day when they're here at school. We're gonna ask them to and get them into the practice of washing their hands when they first arrive, when they go to lunch, after lunch, when they go to PE or health enhancement, and then after health enhancement. So that's at least 5 times through the course of the day that we want them washing with soap. And that's going to be really key, I think, to their safety as well. We're not able to sterilize everything after every group. We'll clean it down, and we'll be wiping them down in cleaning spaces throughout the course of the day, and then a deeper cleaning at the end of the day. And then with the blended model, that allows us to do that again on Wednesday and then at the end of the week. So there'll be some thorough cleanings at those times as well, which again goes to your question. But washing their hands is really, really invaluable and something that all the kids can be doing. And then the third one is that social distancing. And so again, with this blended model and breaking it down into 2 groups, it allows us to have fewer kids in the classroom. And if you walk through, I've been able to walk through most of our classrooms, and they really are spaced out, and teachers are even have their tape measures out there. And so we're trying to maintain that 6-foot distance throughout all the classrooms, and with the smaller number of kids, we are able to do that for the most part. With lunch, the entrance of the school, we've thought about how we are doing that, and again, reducing the time that they are in proximity with other kids for any extended period of time at all. So we've been looking at that, and then our lunches. Besides breaking down in half the number of kids that are attending on those two cohort days, we're also breaking down the grade levels. The grade levels each eat, so the 6th graders all eat together. But we are breaking that in half as well. And so the kids that are here on the Monday, Tuesdays, we're separating them in half again at lunchtime. Half of them will go outside immediately after class. Half of them will go have their lunch in the cafeteria, and then we flip-flop it. So the kids that'll be outside will be coming in and eating lunch, and the kids that have had lunch will be going outside. So again, we're reducing the numbers. Instead of having about 300 students in our cafeteria area having lunch in a normal year, we've been able to reduce that to about 75 kids in the lunch, and then we can space them out and again reduce that. Another thing that we are doing is contact tracing. In the event that we have anybody that has a positive case, then we will have very strict guidelines in terms of seating charts, and we'll know exactly who has been around your kid or the kids throughout the course of the day. And we're even doing that at lunch. We'll have seating groups at lunch. And so we'll be able to use those for contact tracing in the event of a positive case. And then we have protocols in that event as well to ensure that those kids are being addressed and being separated from the general population and then taken home. And then there's quarantine procedures and those kinds of things in place as well. Hope that answers the question.
It's great. It's great. And as a parent, I just have to say what BSD 7 is doing is pretty incredible. As a staff member, as a parent, I mean, it's just really, it's a global pandemic, and yet the strategies that are being employed is pretty exceptional. That's awesome. Okay, so a comment as maybe doing a Zoom online meeting for the online folks. I think that is an excellent idea. And Gordon's obviously hearing this too. If the child is signed up for 100% remote, do they have to stay in Bozeman? We were thinking about going to a remote campsite that has internet capabilities, and I am totally going with you to that remote campsite because that sounds like fun. Gordon, you want to address that question?
Yeah, I'll be there too. That sounds great. And yes, let's go back to that face-to-face part of that question too, or even the earlier question. There will be that level of face-to-face connection with teachers. And I may not have spoken to that earlier. And then as far as leaving town, as long as you have internet capability, yeah, I don't think that's a problem at all. And you know, even some of us or some people will be taking shorter trips and those kinds of things. I will say that the expectation is, whether it's remote or whether it's in person for the 2 days under the blended model, the expectation is that the kids have 5 days of learning. This is very different than the spring last year. We learned a lot from the spring, but we've also increased the expectation. And part of that expectation is whether they're going fully remote or whether they're in school for 2 days, the learning is 5 days. And the teachers are building their instruction and their models in their classroom and going online with the Canvas, the learning management system, with that in mind as well. And it doesn't mean that they're going to be in math at 9:30 on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday if they're in school on Tuesday, Monday and Tuesday. It doesn't mean that it's going to be synchronous or live. Some of that might happen, but it doesn't mean that that's the expectation. And when kids are not in school, it's not the expectation that they are attending that class when they're not in school at that time. But the learning continues. And so the teachers will be, again, speaking to the kids and helping them understand what learning looks like in this blended model and in this time of COVID. But I want to be really, really clear that the learning continues for 5 days through the course of the week, regardless of which of the models they're in or regardless of when they're in the building.
Okay, another question, and Gordon, you may have already answered this, so feel free to acknowledge that if you feel like you already have. Are there plans to help the BOS students feel a part of Sacagawea after school, online activities, etc.?
That's a really great question as well, and that's a fair question, because one of the things that we found in the spring was that was a really difficult time for kids. The learning part of it aside, it was that lack of connection. And again, it goes back to what Ashley was talking about earlier in terms of those kids just being really social animals right now during this period of time in their lives. So I fully understand and appreciate that question of being remote and missing out on that connection. I don't have a great answer for that. I think that some of that is still being developed. I think for right now, and again, because of the choices for going fully remote, and I'm sure that they are very valid and many of them are health related, as I mentioned, likely those connections are probably going to be as we are doing right now, which doesn't feel very connected, I know. But there will be live sessions with the teachers. They will be able to see their classmates in that forum. They may participate if the parents are choosing, they may participate in extracurricular activities that we do have at school. For example, if you have a student that is in 6th grade, and this is primarily for 6th graders, but if you have 7th or 8th graders, who wanted to participate in football, for example, even though they were going fully remote. There's nothing to prevent that from happening. Right now, we do not have intramurals for sixth graders, and that we're giving it a month to see where we are at in terms of the community and what we're able to provide students. But that could be a possibility. To be honest, we haven't really dove into that question yet, but I don't see anything that would prevent a student who is learning remotely, if they chose to want to participate in intramurals once we get those up and running and we feel like it's a safe situation. That could be an opportunity there for the kids to engage with their peers.
Awesome. Thank you, Gordon. Okay. When are kids receiving their Chromebooks? For kids attending in person on Thursday and Friday, will they be attending remotely Tuesday the 8th and Wednesday the 9th?
Yeah, good question. That's one I can answer. The kids are going to get their Chromebooks. The kids that are attending school in the blended model will receive their Chromebooks during their advisory class on the first day that they're attending. So those kids are coming on Tuesday of next week. They'll get their Chromebooks on that Tuesday, and then they have 3 days where they won't be attending. The kids that are coming for the first time on Thursday will also get their Chromebooks during their advisory class period on that first day on Thursday. There's no expectation from Sacagawea. There's no expectation for them to be concerned about their learning or falling behind or anything like that. You don't need to worry about that for that Tuesday and Wednesday. They'll get them on Thursday. And our staff is really, what I've asked them to do to be, let's just throw it out there so you guys also know. I think it's important that you know. The first couple of weeks of school is really about connecting with the kids. And so that's where we're putting our emphasis. And so for those kids who are here in the blended model, we're going to start slow, and we're going to start slow because we want to start by building that foundation. And that foundation is healthy habits here in the building. That foundation is making connections with each other and with the teachers. And that foundation is, what does it mean to learn in a blended model and remotely and in this time of COVID? And so there's going to be considerable time teaching them how to navigate the Canvas, the learning management system, and utilizing that for what they need. It's going to be a lot better, by the way, than what was experienced with Google Classrooms and what we were doing in the spring. This is much better aligned, and our teachers are learning that, and it's a big task right now, but it's going to be a very much more effective and efficient, I think, system, and cause less frustration in the homes as well, based on what I've learned. In terms of the Zoom, the remote students who are learning remotely, this afternoon there is time when you can drive by the school, and we'll have Chromebooks ready to check out to you, and then also tomorrow morning. So like from 8 to 12 in the morning on Friday, if you are able to stop by the school, you'll be able to check out a Chromebook at that time as well. But the kids that are coming on blended learning, will get them on their first day.
Awesome. Thank you, Gordon. Okay, and it looks like the last question, I'm assuming it was at Sacagawea. During our tour, the staff member leading us was wearing a mask incorrectly with the nose out. How will proper PPE procedures be enforced moving forward?
Yeah, that's a great question, but it's also unfortunate that you have to ask it. We need to be on top of that, and that has been brought to my attention, not specifically that case, but one or two others are in the building as we've been preparing for the start of the year. And I'm following up with our staff in terms of those proper protocols, and we can't have exceptions to that. The nose has to be covered. We can't be pulling it down when we're talking to people. I mean, we have to be vigilant and doing that with fidelity. And so I'm addressing that with the staff, and I do apologize on behalf of the staff or in our school if that happened during the tour. If they were outside, then there's, in our conversations with the health department, that's different, and they feel more comfortable with the use of masks outside, or the not as stringent. But within the building, the expectation, and I'll be conveying that, and I'll be monitoring it, will be that the noses are covered and the masks are on at all times. And we're asking that of the kids, and so obviously we need to be modeling that as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Gordon. It looks like we don't have any more questions, so I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up. I just want to say I really believe this is going to be an incredible year, one that we've never seen before, one of rapid growth and rapid change, but one that it's going to be really neat to see and to go through with our children. Thank you again for your time as parents. I know you guys are all super busy. I just want to reiterate, we are here for you and for your child. We certainly wouldn't be here if it weren't for you guys. If you have any questions, you can reach me directly through my email, amarsjones@allthrive.org, or you can just go ahead and call me at Thrive or at the Sacagawea Main School office. And of course, you can always reach out to Gordon through the main school office as well. So thank you so much again, and we're going to have a great year.
Thank you, everybody. Ashley, thank you again for allowing me to jump in on this with you. Before we go, I need to say thanks to not only Ashley, but Thrive. It's an amazing organization and an incredible partnership with the Bozeman schools. I don't know if people in Bozeman recognize what a gift they are and how unusual this is in terms of school districts and a community partnership that they provide. So they're amazing, and take advantage of Ashley. She's awesome, and she can help navigate you and help you, and she truly is a liaison between families in our school, and a great go-to person and a great connection with the resources that are in the community as well. So thank you, everybody. I hope you have a great year with your child, and we'll do our best to work with you to make that happen. Don't ever hesitate to reach out to us.
Thank you so much, everybody.